Good evening. In a sobering Senate Armed Services Committee hearing today, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, former astronaut and Navy combat veteran, confronted the troubling legacy of the previous administration's reckless Golden Dome missile defense fantasy. Facing off with Admiral Charles Richard, former STRATCOM commander and a State Department ambassador, Kelly methodically dismantled the mathematical impossibility of a trillion-dollar space-based interceptor system, a dangerous delusion that could destabilize global nuclear deterrence and trigger a new arms race. What emerged was a stark choice: prudent, limited defense investments versus grandiose Cold War fever dreams that prioritize defense contractor profits over our grandchildren's security.
Back.
Thank you very much. Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Admiral Richard, during your tenure at STRATCOM, you underscored the growing challenges of deterring two nuclear-armed peer adversaries at once. That challenge is getting more complex as New START approaches expiration. At the same time, this administration is trying to throw billions or hundreds of billions eventually at this Golden Dome concept, a homeland missile defense supposedly scaled to counter full salvos of nuclear ballistic missiles from both Russia and China. Physics favors the offense. Intercepting ballistic missiles with decoys present at hypersonic speeds in mid-course or terminal phase is extremely hard. Countermeasures are cheap. Tests are scripted, and real adversaries adapt. A defender must stop everything. The attacker only needs a few to get through. In my view, missile defense can undermine mutual deterrence, and I think a shield can be a false sense of security. So here's the question. In a world without arms control limits and with two major adversaries potentially expanding their nuclear arsenals, what are the strategic implications for pursuing this kind of defense?
Senator, first, I would support additional defenses, air and missile defenses for the United States in terms of the way it enhances our security. I think the success of the Israeli system is an example of the technical challenges that you just described can be addressed. No,
you feel they can be addressed at scale?
I do think they can
with full salvos of
absolutely,
ICBMs?
because the goal is not to, you're not going to intercept every single weapon going in, but you will intercept enough of them that one will drive your opponent to have to consider a much larger attack than they might otherwise have. There's a deterrent value in that alone. And then introducing a lack of confidence on the part of your opponent that their attack is going to be successful, yet they will carry all the consequences of having started it, I think enhances our security.
But Admiral, would you agree decoys are pretty cheap?
I would agree. Decoys are pretty cheap. I would agree that there are ways to discriminate through that. I also think directed energy is pretty cheap. And so I think there is a technological competition, not unlike other ones we've had in our history, that we can win.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to a missile defense. I mean, what we have at Fort Greely, having 44 interceptors for a rogue nation concept makes perfect sense to me. And I think that's where our investment should be. I think the risk, I think we often underestimate that risk. But when you look at the math on this, the number of interceptors, especially if we're going to put them in space, space-based interceptors, the math becomes unworkable rather quickly. And all Russia or China needs to do is expand their magazine depth. And in my view, and I want to get the ambassador's opinion on this, Ambassador, do you feel this is a destabilizing approach?
It depends on what this is, Senator.
Well, the Golden Dome system that we could spend upwards of $1 trillion on to build a system of space-based interceptors to try to intercept a full salvo of nuclear weapons from Russia and or China.
I support what we agreed and recommended in the Strategic Posture Commission report. That is limited missile defenses against conventional and nuclear threats to the United States, integrated air and missile defense, I stress, because there are also a lot of air-breathing systems. We spent a time this morning talking about Russian exotic systems. These new nuclear-propelled systems are not on a ballistic trajectory.
Right.
They are air breathers, and they come in under that ballistic trajectory. So I think we need to take a comprehensive look at this, including the very long experience the Russians have with countermeasures of all kinds, and figure out what will buy us the most effectiveness in countering limited, opportunistic attacks on our critical targets.
Yeah, I agree with you. On the limited, opportunistic attacks, we need something. I am very concerned that we could throw $1 trillion at a problem that ultimately we will find is unsolvable, that we will not be able to get a 4 nines kind of reliability out of it, and we just wind up encouraging our adversaries to build more ballistic missiles, more warheads, and then this problem ultimately grows out of control. I mean, we've seen this before. We've got the numbers down, and I really worry about the future for our kids and our grandkids living in a world where we have multiple countries with potentially thousands and thousands of nuclear weapons. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. To the panel,
Senator Mark Kelly, a man who's literally looked down at this planet from space, who understands orbital mechanics better than most defense contractors, laid bare the mathematical impossibility at the heart of the Pentagon's Golden Dome fantasy. His argument wasn't ideological, it was arithmetical. Space-based interceptors against full Russian and Chinese salvos? The defender must achieve near-perfect success. The attacker needs just a handful of warheads to penetrate, and as Kelly methodically demonstrated, countermeasures and decoys are cheap, far cheaper than the trillion-dollar boondoggle being proposed. Admiral Richard's response was telling. He invoked the Israeli Iron Dome, a system designed to intercept primitive rockets from Gaza, not hardened ICBMs traveling at Mach 20 with sophisticated penetration aids. Conflate fundamentally different threat scenarios to justify unlimited budgets. The Admiral speaks of technological competitions we can win, as if outspending adversaries on unproven systems is strategy rather than fiscal recklessness. But the ambassador's testimony revealed something perhaps more concerning. Even within this administration, there's no consensus. The Strategic Posture Commission, composed of serious national security professionals, recommended limited missile defenses against limited threats. Senator Kelly's warning about arms race dynamics deserves particular attention. We spent decades negotiating down global nuclear arsenals from Cold War peaks of over 60,000 warheads. New START, whatever its limitations, maintained some ceiling on Russian and American strategic weapons. As that treaty approaches expiration with no successor in sight, the nightmare scenario Kelly described becomes increasingly plausible. Moscow and Beijing, faced with American missile defense deployments, respond by dramatically expanding their offensive arsenals. More missiles, more warheads, more MIRVs. The math spirals in exactly the wrong direction. And here's what often gets lost in these Pentagon briefings. China's nuclear arsenal, while growing, still numbers in the hundreds, not thousands. But if Beijing perceives that Washington is attempting to negate their entire deterrent through missile defense, every strategic calculus changes. We could actually incentivize the very nuclear buildup we claim to fear. This isn't theoretical, it's precisely what happened when the Reagan administration pursued Star Wars. The Soviets responded not by surrendering, but by developing cheaper countermeasures and expanding their arsenal. The fiscal dimension cannot be ignored. We're discussing $1 trillion, perhaps more, for a system that may never work as advertised. That's money that won't go to conventional force modernization, cyber defense, climate adaptation for military installations, or literally anything else. And for what? A false sense of security that, as Kelly warned, could make us less safe by undermining the very deterrent stability that has prevented nuclear war for 8 decades. There's a deeper philosophical question here about American exceptionalism and technological hubris. The physics of ballistic missile defense are unforgiving. Discriminating between warheads and decoys in the vacuum of space, in minutes, with hostile actors who've spent decades perfecting penetration aids, this isn't like shooting down subsonic cruise missiles or drones. The offense-defense calculus fundamentally favors the offense, and no amount of Silicon Valley optimism changes Newton's laws. What made Senator Kelly's testimony so powerful was his invocation of future generations. His concern wasn't abstract, it was personal. A world where his grandchildren grow up with multiple nations possessing thousands upon thousands of nuclear weapons, where arms control has collapsed, where trillion-dollar defense systems create the illusion of safety while actually increasing instability. That's the world this Golden Dome concept threatens to create. The real tragedy is that there's a sensible middle path.